All right, guys, what's going on? It is time for another podcast. So, today I'm going to be talking a little bit about this past weekend and basically where I spent the weekend, why I spent the weekend there. But don't worry, there's going to be some good lessons in there for you guys as well. The goal is always to bring good value, right? So, we're going to get into it in just a second. But, guys, as you tune in, drop me a message, say hi, let me know you're here, let me know you're listening, and we're going to get into it. We're talking today about what was going on this weekend. We're talking about the apprenticeship, the course that I went to, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what I learned and, again, how it can apply to you guys as well. So, let's go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I am your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are going to be talking about the art of coaching apprenticeship. And the reason that I'm going to talk about this, and more specifically, I'm going to talk about the background of why I was at this event on the weekend. Just to let you guys know a little bit more about me, a little bit more about my background, but then also to talk a little bit about, the deeper side of coaching, not just do this conditioning session like we do a lot of times. So I was at this event. It was hosted by the company Art of Coaching. The head guy of that whole company, his name's Brett Bartholomew. I've been following him for a very, very long time. And what I've always found interesting about Brett, and if you're an athlete or a coach, you should definitely be following this guy. Oh, I just screwed up everything. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. We're all good. We're all good. So, if you're an athlete or a coach, you should definitely be following this guy. If you are still listening, I appreciate you. Just dropped my phone and then somehow it took the recording off of the computer, but I think it rolled all the way through. That threw me off for a minute. But Brett Bartholomew, you should go. You should follow this guy. Basically, he was a strength and conditioning coach for a long time, and the gap that he noticed in the industry was a gap in communication. Ironically, as I screwed up all of my cameras and everything here, it was a gap in communication. So the industry was so set on a front squat versus a back squat and all these stupid arguments that were leading nowhere, that he realized that there was a lot of problems with how coaches communicated with athletes, how to deal with certain types of athletes, and all of these things that really and truly are essential to our job that just were never being addressed. So he became the guy to address them. He started talking more about the quote unquote soft skills of coaching, which really and truly aren't soft at all, because there's so much that goes into learning how to get the most out of your people and so on. So I found Brett originally in 2018 when I read his book, Conscious Coaching, which, again, if you're a coach, do yourself a favor, look that up, read it, use it. You will absolutely not regret it. And during COVID, when everything was shut down, his podcast became honestly lifeblood for me. Like, learning and developing these skills and learning about, the ins and outs of how to just become better as a coach, how to get more out of my athletes, how to speak better to my people, and all of these things became so fascinating that I was listening to his podcast every single day, and I would start DMing him about podcast episodes that I liked and things that I learned and things I was going to implement when I was able to coach again. And not at all expecting a return, I would get messages back from him here and there, oh, so glad you liked the episode, so happy you got value. And then, he'd actually engage in a little bit more conversation, not just, a typical thanks for the kind words. And that just really meant a lot. And actually, one other thing that I want to say before we get deeper into, other things that I've gotten from this guy is when you see my logo, it's on the back of the hoodie I'm wearing right now. When you see my logo, the colors, not that it's any fancy color scheme, the colors are red, white, and black. And that was actually because of his logo. I was always so fascinated with the work he was doing and the company that he runs, that when I was starting my company, I was like, I want a piece of that in what I do. I want, the coaching to shine through, not just, hey, look, our programs are good. And so as a result, I looked at his logo for inspiration, and I took the colors in his logo. So I'm always reminded when I look at mine that communication and the quote unquote soft skills are a huge part of being successful at what we do. Now, through COVID as well, like I said, I'm listening to this guy's podcast. I'm sending him messages about, episodes that benefited me and, things that I wanted to start applying and, situations that I had dealt with athletes where I realized by reading his book how I could have dealt with them better, and just thanking him for putting out solid work. And I'd be getting messages back from him, engaging in, actual good conversation, not just kind of brushing me off as, some young coach just starting out. And I appreciated that so much. And I remember when he put out an online course while COVID was going on. And I remember messaging him, asking him some questions about it. And then, he mentioned, he was like, well, it's for sale now. I can send you the link and like, here's everything that's included. He dropped the price. And I remember telling him, yeah, money's just tight right now. I don't think I can do that. And he left it there. He didn't try to push. He didn't try to, force me into a sale that I wasn't ready for. He just said, hey, you know what? No problem. Then like, hope all's good. And then I remember literally the next day listening to a podcast episode of his where he talked about one of the most important things in development in a profession was investing in yourself. And I laughed as I listened to this, and I was like, even though the podcast had been filmed or recorded, before we had that conversation, I remember laughing and just being like, this is a sign. I need to buy this guy's course. I listen to everything that he does for free. I am engaging with him. He's obviously a good dude, knows what he's talking about, is here to help. I need to buy this guy's course. And so I messaged him back. I bought the course and then messaged him back and told him that I bought the course. He thanked me, and again, like truly was thankful for the support, not just, brushing me off again. And so I'd started diving into his courses, and like always, as it always is, and now I understand this being deeper and deeper into running a business, even though he was giving away so much for free, there was so much more value in the course, right? I learned so much more about how to better approach athletes, how to better handle difficult situations, how to really dig into what I do as a profession so much deeper by actually investing the money and hiring this guy or buying the course from this guy instead of just listening to the free stuff. And so after buying that course, I got so much out of it. It started benefiting me in my day-to-day coaching practice so much that then I bought his 2 other courses, and same thing. The little pieces and little things I started putting together from going through the courses just helped me, again, improve my craft, improve the skills, improve the ability to better motivate athletes and not come into, difficult situations with them. And so I continued listening to his podcast. And actually from there, one of the cool things is I had just started this podcast at this time, which is crazy to say because we're 501 episodes in now, which feels just insane. I had just started this podcast, and I remember thinking, you know what? It would be so great to be able to interview him, to be able to talk to him and ask him questions about, how he came to this communication niche and how he started doing the things that he does. And so I sent him a message on LinkedIn, and, I asked him, I was like, hey, I know you're a busy guy and I know you've got a lot going on, but I would greatly appreciate being able to interview you and talk to you about all of this stuff you do on my show. Fully not expecting that I was going to get a response because, again, this guy is crushing the world at the time and still is. And I was literally nobody at the time. He messaged me back within 24 hours and told me it would be an absolute honor to come on my show. We worked at the time, and for anybody listening now, if you want to go check it out, it is episode 40 of the Elite Development Podcast, and still one of my favorite ones that I've done to this day. But anyways, let's move forward in the story. So that was about 4 years ago now, which is nuts, but continuing to just stay in touch, continuing to listen to this guy's podcast, watch the videos, all of these things. And just this year, just this past weekend, he came to Calgary for a course that he runs called the Apprenticeship, diving deeper into communication, diving deeper into leadership and all of these things. And especially now in the position I'm in. I have a team of 3 people that work for me. I'm working with a lot of high-level athletes around the world. Learning to improve in these skills is just such an important area of the game. I knew that when he was coming to town, I had to be there. There was no way he was coming through Calgary and I was missing it. So he did have to follow up. He did follow up with me a couple more times than I wish I had made necessary coming into the event to, tell me that the tickets were available and all of that. But I bought a ticket and I went into this thing. And coming into this weekend, one of the really cool things about the way that Brett ran this course is it wasn't just, him standing in front of the room talking and we're all sitting staring at slides, taking notes. He made it interactive. He made it he made it learning on the spot. And not only learning on the spot, but he made it so clear that, we're going to do some improv. We're going to come up with some different situations. We're going to make you deal with some things that are going to make you uncomfortable. But he made it so clear that, like, in our day-to-day practice, leading a team, coaching athletes, whatever else it might be, you're going to step into these kind of situations regardless. So instead of being worried about it, instead of having anxiety about it, this was your place to practice. This was your place to learn. And just how clearly he communicated that through the whole weekend of, like, when we step into these exercises, when we step into these drills, don't get too tense. Don't worry about it. You're here to fail. You're here to practice. You're here to improve. He was able to just wipe the anxiety away because, like, I was nervous coming into that. Improv, I've never really felt like was my thing. And, like, these kind of put you on the spot, see how you react to a situation. I was nervous to look stupid. I was feeling kind of awkward about the whole thing. But the way he was able to just shut that down really spoke highly of him, his abilities, but then also the course as a whole. And this is really where I bring it back to athletes and what we do. If you're an athlete, you've got to understand that when you're in practice, when you're in training, the goal is not to look good, right? The goal is not to worry about what anyone else is thinking, worry about what anyone else is doing, whatever else it might be. The goal is to improve your abilities to be successful where it matters, right? And so the thing I really took away from the weekend, and the thing that I hope you guys take away from this, is to let the guard down more, right? When you're sparring, when you're training, obviously your guard should be high. You should be focused on defense, but don't worry about being the most successful in the gym. Don't worry about, looking a certain way in a drill. Don't take that ego into the gym to, have to prove that you're the best. Understand that if you're willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, if you're willing to put yourself in situations where, a guy who doesn't have the same experience as you might get the better of you, whatever else it might be, you are going to be more successful. And you're going to be more successful because you're going to have practice at the situations or the scenarios or the positions that you are not as good at. And if you have practice in those positions, if you have practice training those skills, then when those skills actually come into play, when it actually matters, you're going to be in a better position to see success. Because I see so many athletes, and I see, I say this not from a position of superiority because this is something I struggle with too, but I see so many athletes that, their number one mission seems to be look the best at all times, right? They don't want to do the grappling drills because, they're not as good at grappling or they don't like it as much. They don't want to go with the higher level guys because they're going to get beat up. They don't want to do the things that are going to truly help them improve because it's going to be hard. It's going to, they might look stupid. They might lose their rounds. They might, not see success that day in the gym. But you've got to understand every athlete at the top level, and for myself, every coach at the top level has seen those scenarios 1,000 times. 1,000 is even putting it lightly, has seen those scenarios hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times. And the reason that they're successful now is because they put themselves in those bad positions. They work through those bad positions. They let people beat them because they're actually working on improving every area of their game. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to look stupid, if you're not willing to mess up, if you're not willing to put yourself in those bad positions or those bad situations, you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay exactly where you're at. You're not going to improve. And years later, you're going to still be struggling with the same things, wondering why you haven't gotten any better. So there's still so much more I'm digesting from the weekend, but I hope you guys got a little more insight into myself, into a little bit more of my background. Again, if you're a coach or leader of any kind that follows me, make sure you go follow Brett. Make sure you follow Art of Coaching. Make sure that you do yourself a favor and you attend one of their events. I'm going to be working with them with some one-on-one mentorship as well that I absolutely can't wait for. But guys, the other part of this that I really want you guys to take away from this is don't be afraid to look stupid. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to screw things up when you are working on making improvements that are actually going to help you deeper in your career. So guys, I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, I will catch you on the next episode.